This week's episode is sponsored by the M2Y Conference. Ministering to youth in today's world is really challenging. Here at OKS Youth Ministry, one of the best ways that we found to make it easier is to know that there are others in the trenches with you. Join us at the M2Y Conference at Heritage Christian University, November 7th through 10th, to learn from others who are doing great things for youth ministry. And hey, please stop by our vendor booth and say hi.
The OKS Youth Ministry Podcast, where three of the OKS Youth Ministers talk about youth ministry. I'm Michael Deese, and I'm joined by Jeremy Crow and Hunter Puckett. What's up, fellas? How are y'all?
Man, just trying to figure out how we're going to spend this doggone money.
Oh, yeah.
It is a stressful time of year, for sure.
How's y'all's budgets looking?
Almost ready to submit. I got to turn it in this week. So.
Okay. How's your budget looking?
It's looking really good, Michael. We just turned it in this past week, so we're excited about that. We're waiting for the elders to look it over and I guess get back with me.
Cool, yeah. I had my budget meeting, I guess it was like the 1st of October, right around there, and I had my first budget meeting, submitted that.
Overachiever.
Got approved. No, I just did what my elders told me to do. So,
Well, I was actually the first one out of anyone to turn in a budget. So I'm hoping this, if you're the first one, you just automatically get it approved.
yeah,
so we'll see.
they look at it and they're like, oh yeah, he needs all
Yeah.
of this stuff.
Yeah.
So what is the craziest thing you've ever spent some of your youth budget on?
Not one item specifically, but every time I walk through the Walmart checkout line, I feel like I have the most random assortment of items. And, there'll be hula hoops, but also yogurt and sometimes
Pantyhose.
yes. I mean, you never know, tube socks. You never know what you're going to have. And the person behind the counter looks at you like you're a crazy person, which you are. So.
Yeah.
Well, I had a similar situation. Checking out at Dollar General, had 20 plungers in my shopping cart. So it was fun. The kids loved it, but it's just really awkward when stuff like that happens. I also think about a time that actually Jeremy peer pressured us into buying this JBL speaker mic combo.
The Party Box Encore.
Party Box Encore.
It was on
But
sale.
it's super cool because they can all be linked together. And then with us and all the things that we do together, it's super convenient to all of us take it to Maywood. It doesn't matter where we are. We're always going to have speakers and microphones wherever we need them.
Yeah, we used them all at the retreat this last weekend.
We're looking forward to our future sponsorship by JBL. They want to go ahead and hook us up.
Hey, and if you should look up that speaker box, the Party Box Encore, because it's probably on sale at Walmart. I think they're originally $250.
Yeah.
Something like that, and we got them for $150. And
Yeah,
so
about that.
Yeah, on
pretty
Black
good.
Friday last year, they went on sale, so be on the lookout for that. Go ahead and put it in your budget plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the weirdest things I've ever done is having to explain to the cashier at a Sam's Club what I was doing.
And they don't care, by the way.
No, it's
But we feel like we have to explain it.
they were like, "This is a weird assortment of things," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a youth minister," and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm, oh, okay. So you just have to kind of explain each one of your things away. And in case y'all didn't know, we're going to be talking about budget planning and what you need to do for a budget and how to do that for a budget. And it gets a little complicated sometimes.
Sure.
So we're going to just kind of lay out some considerations that we have at the beginning before we even write anything down, before we plan out any money or anything at all. And the first thing that I always do is pray about it. So you pray about, how we can better use this money and making sure that you have that covered in prayer and that you have your thoughts in the right place, that you're not, hey, I think it'd be really cool to just buy a Xbox for the youth room and then just play Xbox, keeping that stuff in mind, praying about stuff, praying about participation, praying about different things that you're wanting to accomplish with that budget. What's something that you think about before you write anything down? What are some things that you think about?
I try to think about the specific kids that I've got and what kind of things are going on this year. What kind of things that they've got coming up, what kind of things are happening in our community, in our church, and what areas maybe that we as a youth group are going to be involved in the community, what kind of things we might, budget or think about to support our students in their places that they're at.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. I also look at maybe evaluating the year prior, see how those events went. And when I plan for events, we're going to kind of dive into this here in a little bit. I always expect X amount of kids to go to these events. And sometimes that works out and it's around that number. And sometimes you'll bring more and sometimes you bring less. And you're trying to see that of, okay, well, why did they not show up to this event? And do we need to budget less, or do we need to expect that was just an off year and next year's going to be right back where it always is? Or how do you go about that? So you're evaluating your previous year while also planning for the most participation.
Yeah.
And that's tough because a lot of times we're not going to have 100%.
Right.
But sometimes we could, and we need to be prepared for that.
And hey, just to give a good story, when we went to Rush, I planned for about 12 to 15 people to go total. And so I bought an Airbnb. I had everything lined up, everything planned out. About a month ahead, I passed the sheet around one last time before I finalized our registration and all that stuff. And I had, at the end of the day, I had 29 people signed up. And I was like,
Blew that budget.
and so I went to the elders. I was like, hey, this budget, I blew it. And they were like, what did you do? What happened? And I was like, well, we had a plan for about 12 to 15 and we had 30. And so I had to get a new house and I had to get some extra food costs and extra stuff. And they're like, oh, so it was because of growth? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, don't worry about it. That's
okay.
fine.
It's a good problem.
I thought that you were just like,
won't
you
be
went off
upset.
and did something, And so luckily I kind of lucked into not having to worry about that. I thought I was going to have to, but no, it was something that kind of worked out. But some of the things that we are going to talk about, we have some different things that we consider, and this isn't going to be everything that we consider. It's not exhaustive, but it's definitely some stuff that we take into consideration while budgeting things. And so we wanted to help you out by walking through the way that we budget things, the way that we get our budget ready. And hopefully we'll do this every year at the beginning of October because that's kind of when budget starts. We start talking about budgets and everything. So Jeremy, what's the first thing that you want to talk about whenever we're considering our budget?
Let me say this. This is something that I've made an effort in the last couple of years to do. How you present your budget matters. It needs to be able to be understood. It needs to make sense. It needs to be clearly communicated. This last year, I presented to my eldership, which they all joked about and cracked on when I brought it in. But I brought a color-coded printout that showed every category of my budget. There's 12 different sections, and each one is color-coded, and it has all the numbers in it and what each event is. And then it had notes on the back that were color-coded to say why these certain items were this or
Okay,
that.
pause. Jeremy, you need help.
Yes.
Have you seen it though?
Yeah, I have.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. I know, but
But
you need help.
I had them send them to me, and I sent it to my elders. They're like, no, just do what you usually do. We don't want to look at this. We don't want to read all this.
here's why I say that. You are the advocate for your ministry, for your students, for your ministry, and you are asking for the funds, and you're not doing it unjustly. You know the things that you're going to try to do, and you're trying to get the money for it, and so you want to present it in the best way possible so that you're likely to get the things that you need to do your ministry well. And so I want to make sure when they see it, they go, wow, this is professional. He took time to do this. It doesn't mean that they're going to approve every cent of it, but it at least tells them Jeremy thought this out, and it matters that he's put time in this.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I would just say. But in terms of like a category, one of the things that I always think about and include in my budget is administration stuff. So I mean like we hire interns in the summer, and so part of the administrative budget is our intern salaries, and what we're paying them and how we're reimbursing things on that. Another is professional allowance. What I mean by that is if I take a student out to eat, we go somewhere, and I buy their lunch, and I put that on professional allowance. Ball game fees. You guys know, anybody that's worked in youth ministry for some time knows that you go to a lot of events, a lot of games, and it costs a lot of money. One time I had a athletic director in a school system that gave a ministry pass to all the youth ministers in the town, and everyone got to go, to games for free.
I had that happen,
which was
one time.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's never happened again. If you're an administrator, that's a good thing. Okay, but we spend a lot of money on that kind of stuff, and so I don't want to be out of my own salary in my pocket to do those things. So I budget some funds for that. You're going to need things like new technology. Like right now, my computer needs a battery. That's something I'm budgeting for next year, is to replace the battery in my laptop. Any kind of database type stuff, if you track attendance or you track statistics about, involvement and what your kids are doing, I use something called MenHub Youth that I track analytics and stuff for our students. So any of that kind of stuff, administrative on the top stuff is important, I think. So.
Yeah. I always kind of consider whenever this is something. My big thing is technology things. How we're going to display a thing if we're traveling somewhere. How we're going to display PowerPoint. How we're going to do this. And I'll just tell you, if you get these cheap projectors like I always get,
$90.
yeah, and they're great,
worthless.
but they're going to ruin after you take them on 3 trips and you drop them once, it's over.
And they're not bright enough to see anyway.
That's true. That's very true. And because if it's even a little bit light outside, you can't see anything. And so just keep that in mind whenever you're budgeting for something. If you need a new TV for your youth room or whatever, make sure you get the right size and make sure that you're asking for enough that's going to get you what you need.
There's a phrase, I do, the woodwork world, and there's a phrase when you're buying tools called cry once, buy once. And when you got to buy it, spend the money to get what you need. And be glad you bought the right thing.
Yeah,
And it's worth it. It will last a long time. And I love your comment about the ball game fees. Those add up really quick, especially when you're going 1 to 2 a week.
Yep.
And depending on the time of day, and also depending on if it's a varsity sport, that's a lot more expensive than going to a JV game or a middle school game. And
We're anywhere
it adds up
between
quick.
$5 to $10 for every game. Usually around 8 to 10.
and then if you're bringing kids and wife are going too, I mean,
Yep.
that just adds it up even more. How often do y'all try to go to ball games? Just curious.
Ideally, my goal is, let's say like right now we're coming into basketball season, or we're in basketball season, I guess, beginning it. I try to catch one game of every kid's something every season. So all my kids that play basketball or all my kids that play soccer or whatever it is, I may not make it to 2 games, but I'll make it to one of their game, or that's the goal anyways. That's gotten a lot harder as my own children are growing up and getting into organized sports. Right now we've got 2 to 3 nights a week that my kids have practices, and it's getting harder. So,
Yeah.
What about y'all?
I'm in that same boat because I like that. I'd at least try and see each kid play one sport, and then if I finish that, I kind of start back over and things like that. What helps me is half my tennis team or half my youth group plays tennis for Hartselle High School, so it's super convenient when I show up to that. And I'm knocking off 8 or 9 kids
Yeah.
in one sporting event.
Yeah.
Same thing with theater, same thing with along those lines. But we just try and change it up.
With that, I try to capitalize on like when Vinemont is going to play Holly Pond, and I know I've got a kid on both teams. I try to, and
Yeah.
I'll go sit the
Yeah.
first half with this family and sit the second half with this other family. So
And just so you all know, none of us have ever done that perfectly,
No.
right? I mean,
No.
there's always some kid that falls through the cracks, or we just don't have time. We just can't make it happen. But
And I try
we do
and-
make sure to
This
do
might
that.
sound bad, and sorry for any of the youth group that listens to this. I try and cater that event to the kids that maybe aren't there all the time or that I see all the time. I'm going to make sure I go to their games first, and then the ones I see all the time that they're there all the time and they're with me. I might see them once play that sport that they're playing in that season.
Yeah. So that is very, very important. Ball games, concerts, choir performances, whatever it is. Very important to remember that stuff, because that stuff is stuff that just kind of falls through the cracks. You don't really think about it until you start at the end of the year. You're looking over your budget and like, oh my goodness, I spent $500 on just going to a ball game during the spring or during the fall or whatever. And so keep that in mind while you're planning out your budget. Hunter, what was something that you were going to talk about with our budget when you consider our budget?
Something that I feel like we oftentimes neglect is personal development, whether that's conferences, extended learning, reading materials, just things along those lines. We often put ourselves last, and I feel like we should be higher up on that list. I think of conferences. We've been talking about M2Y coming up, Ministry to Youth, something along those lines where your eldership should see the need for you to be at those places and see the need to help support you in those times. I think about my first year going to M2Y. I think we were still in Pigeon Forge at the time, and I had like 4 or 5 other youth minister friends, and they were all staying in one hotel room. I'm like, guys, why are y'all doing that? Like, oh, because it's cheap. Their elders weren't paying for anything. They were just doing it on their own dime. And for me, that means a lot. Extended learning. Michael and I are both at Heritage Christian University right now. It's fantastic. If you're a youth minister, they have half off. I think it's half off tuition.
I think it's free
Free
tuition.
It's free tuition. Sorry, Heritage. It's free
Yeah.
tuition, and that's huge for a lot of people. And I probably should have known that. Reading materials. Get some youth ministry books. One that just came out, In Christ Image, A Guide to Youth Ministry, edited by President Brothers at Heritage Christian. But not only that, Michael Deese has a chapter in there. There are a handful of chapters written by youth ministers, and it's such a good book. And I've had the privilege to read it before it was released. But it's such an informative book, and there's so many other books as well that are great for youth ministers.
And I'll just tell you, Kirk Brothers editing that made that book. I mean, it was a great book. I read a lot of the chapters beforehand. Me and some of my friends were passing our chapters along to kind of proofread and all that stuff. And I read the chapter official, and it's so much more clear. And he just done such a good job with editing it. And so give him a little credit there, because he did a great job with that.
So you mentioned the conference things. Let me say this. Most elderships are not going to call you up and say, hey, we would love to send you on a conference. You have to be your own advocate for this. Every other profession, everybody you know that works in any other job, they have some sort of professional development that's part of their compensation in a way. They're sent to a conference, or they're given some kind of extended training, or they're given tickets to go to something that's a developmental thing, but also a chance to get away. And it's okay for you to pursue those kind of things. I think we feel guilty for saying, we feel selfish asking for something like this. For us, a few years ago, Sam and I over at Beltline, we went to NCYM out in Colorado Springs, and it was awesome. We went through a great conference for 4 days, and then we extended our trip by 3 more days, and he and I both took our wives and we went skiing. Okay, did we go skiing on the church's dime? No, but the first part of the trip was part of my youth budget. The hotel and the lodging and the conference and all that, and then we went to extended stuff. So I'm just saying you should be your own advocate for your professional development. Your elders aren't going to just offer this, but I think they will give if you ask of this kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's so many different ones. There's so many different ones that you can go to. A lot of them put on by members of the church. You mentioned the National Conference of
Youth Ministry.
Or no, actually, it's the National Children's and Youth Ministry Conference. Yeah. And then we've talked about M2I, which I've been every year at M2I. I've grown substantially every year after I get back from that. Looking over my notes and implementing the things that we've talked about. It's an incredible place, and you should 100% go. Like
Revival, is that the name of the one at Great
Revival
River?
at
Revival at Graymere. Also, they have the Deeper Youth Ministry. Luke Dockery, the Harding guys, they have one as well. I think it's coming up this weekend, or it might have been this past weekend,
They're
but it's here
offering something
soon.
in February too.
If you haven't read some of Luke's stuff, you need to go on deeperyouthministry.com. And he has not sponsored us or anything for us to mention this, but 100%. You should go to deeperyouthministry.com and look at their resources and buy all of them, because they are top notch. Luke Dockery does such a great job. I think he's the guy over the youth ministry at Harding. Yeah, and he's incredible.
Fantastic. And we heard him at the Freed Hardman lectureships.
Yes.
And also utilize that. Freed Hardman lectureships, Faulkner lectureships. Go to lectureships. You don't have to have gone to these colleges in order to go to these lectureships. Anyone can go. Freed Hardman offered a youth ministry track at lectureships, and it was fantastic. We really enjoyed it. All three of us were there. We had a great time with it.
Yep. It's a really good. Just keep those things in mind while you're budgeting out, and make sure that you tell your elders, here's some of the things that I would like to go to. I'd like to go to Harding's lectureship, and I would like to go to the Graymere Revival retreat. And those are two things that are really important to me. Is there any chance that you could cover at least some of the costs, if not all the costs for that? And so that's something to consider when you are planning out your budget.
And the reality is, I mean, you can sell yourself on this by saying, I'm going to be better at my job for having done these things.
Yeah.
I mean, you will be better in youth ministry by just pursuing more training. So.
And I think also this, what we talked about Heritage. There's a small little fee in that. It's not, you don't just have to get in.
No, it's not
you have to
completely
pay.
free.
You have to pay for your books, and then you have to pay like a technology and library fee. And I think that covers the whole semester. And so, ask your elders to cover some of that. That's personal development, especially if you're working toward. Like I'm currently going through ministerial counseling. That's the degree that I'm working on right now. And ask your elders, hey, is this something that you think you could cover at least some of this?
Well, I promise you will see growth in your ministry taking graduate level classes.
100%,
They're going
yeah.
to push you, and all the professors there are fantastic, but they are going to push you. But what you also have to take into it as well is it's going to take a lot of time out of your day. So you have to be ready for that as well. But Michael, what's something that you have on your budget?
Man, I have a second passion, and it is for marketing. I love marketing. I took a short, very, very, very small marketing class when I was at Freed Hardeman, and then I heard one lecture that was just pretty cool. It just showed maybe 1/100th of an image of a Coca-Cola can, and as soon as he put it up there, I was like, "That's a Coca-Cola can." And he was like, "Can you tell me what this is?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a Coke can." He was like, "How did you know that?" I was like, "Well, because it has that little script writing in white connected to a red," and it just caught me. But marketing is very important because not only does it help your teenagers and help connect with your teenagers, but it also goes into the community. And so putting these marketing things, do T-shirts, have your church put on the T-shirt, school advertisements. You can do stickers to give out at retreats or camps or whatever. You can, even Facebook ads and making signs and having things printed out, and all of that kind of stuff is great. But unless you have a mind behind it to really find a way to market those things, to make good looking graphics, to be able to have good sounding music whenever you first come in. All of this stuff goes into, it's all marketing. It's all about trying to make what you are doing important. Make what you're doing something that
Visible and available.
yeah, people flock to it. They see that and they're like, oh, their eyes grasp it, kind of like a Coca-Cola can. If you're really thirsty and the first thing you see is a Coca-Cola can, you're, oh yeah, I'm going to buy that. And so I think marketing is very, very important.
Well, and also too, don't be afraid to spend money on a youth group logo.
Oh yeah,
Because and people think that that's so silly, but that ties that youth group and gives them some ownership. And in the past couple of years, we've added the youth group logo, but we've also added a youth group. I call it a character. We call him Fig, FYG, Flint Youth Group. And he's
nice.
literally just our arrowhead with some. I made it off of Canva. And it's just an arrow. It's our logo. It's our arrowhead, and then it's just some cartoon eyes, cartoon hands, and cartoon feet. And the kids love it.
It looks like Clippy.
It gives them ownership.
It looks like Clippy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking? Yeah. And dude, who knows what Clippy is, right? Every single person in the world, because it was marketed correctly. And so yeah, you did. Yeah, I love Fig.
It's not only that,
That's
you're
cool.
just adding ownership to the kids and to the youth group.
Yeah.
Somebody in our area that's pulling this off well is Beltline. Sam does a good job with pushing like Beltline's youth group stuff out there. They have a logo that's very recognizable. People get it. Another that really does this kind of stuff well with marketing stuff is Philip up at Mount Juliet. They're fantastic at this kind of stuff.
The Mount Julietti.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets that, right? I will say this one thing in that marketing budget that you mentioned is T-shirts. I think a lot of times we have T-shirts for events. We have a retreat shirt, we have a camp shirt. I think there's value in just doing a youth group shirt.
There is. Let me just tell y'all, the last place that I was working at, one of the big things that the eldership had talked to me about when I first got hired was we just don't see them. They like being together, but they're not together as a youth group.
Yeah.
They're friends. But they're not together as a youth group. They don't hang out unless the youth group is doing something. And I'll just tell you, my solution to that was we created a logo, and I put it on a shirt. And then I made shirts for every single kid in the youth group. And I used that in my budget. I planned it out in my budget.
Yep.
And the logo was sweet. It was awesome. Coolest logo I've ever made. They're using it today. They will use it for years to come. Okay. And I put it on a T-shirt, and it was almost immediate. Everybody had the same shirt. We wore it to different events that were area-wide type events. And when everybody, I would just say, hey, make sure to wear your shirt. Everybody would wear the shirt, and we'd be like, whoa. We'd have these cheers, and we would do these fun things, and we were being crazy, and it was a lot of fun. But it was all because we just had those shirts, and everybody felt like they were part of something bigger.
Creates community.
Yeah. And so that's. I love the idea of marketing. I love making fun and things that grab somebody's eye.
Well, and you get to give that to a visitor.
Yes.
They show up to
Yeah,
your church. Hey, you
absolutely.
get a T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Now they get to wear it.
Swag bag.
I don't remember who it was. Someone mentioned that. I was like, "Are you sure you want visitors wearing your shirts?" Like, I mean, that's advertisement. Everyone, anytime that
100%.
wears the shirt, everyone's going to see the Flint Youth Group logo on it.
Right.
They're
Right.
going to know about it.
That's right. Okay, so let me say one that I think that is worth putting in your budget. We work with teenagers, 6th through 12th grade. I don't know if you know this, but they're a little bit rambunctious and they get crazy. You 100% are going to have stuff break. And what I mean by that is budget for some furniture. Part of that is, every year, hopefully you're growing in a way that you need some more chairs in classrooms. Part of it is things are just going to wear out. Equipment, chairs, tables, things like that are going to wear out. You're going to need a new projector at some point in the teen room. You're going to need, different dry erase boards. You're going to, all those kind of things. You got to have equipment to do your ministry stuff. And so plan for those things. Even if you're not sure if you're going to buy furniture next year, put just a little bit. Chairs going to cost $40 to $50 each. Put, $300, $500, whatever, to some new chairs. You may not touch it, okay? If you come in under $300, $400 under your budget at the end of the year, nobody's going to be upset with you. If you blow your budget by $500 because you didn't think about we're going to need some chairs this year, somebody's going to be like, why didn't you plan for that?
Right. Yeah.
Those kind of things. Considerations for remodeling. The reality is your youth space is where your students interact with their group and where they engage with the idea of being a follower of Jesus together in this space. And you want it to be something that is inviting, something that makes them want to be there. Something I've been trying to do, and this is something I'd heard a friend talk about before, is creating environments for seasons. I don't do that perfectly. I don't do that well, but I've started I put these lights up in our overhead area that I can change the colors. These typical LED things you can change to different colors. So this time of year I've got it on like purple and orange. It's around Halloween. Around Christmas there'll be red and green lights overhead. When it's 4th of July, I make them red, white, and blue. As silly as that sounds, when they walk in the room is communicating. This is not a dead space that hasn't been updated for years. Something has changed. We put up, decorations or posters or things that, are evolving and changing. Another thing with that is buy some new frames and put some new picture, budget for some new photos of your kids. Don't have kids from 6 years ago on the walls that none of these kids even know.
Yes.
Have current updated photos and things in your spaces that tells the students this is an active, alive place. That's something I struggle with. I would say if you're not going to be someone who updates the photos, don't even put photos of students. Just put generic stuff, because if you're not going to update the photos, you don't need old photos hanging around.
Right. Yeah. And listen, photos are not expensive, but it does add up pretty quick. So make sure that you're budgeting. If you're doing something like that, make sure you're budgeting something for that. That's actually something that I have been looking at some way to bring our youth room into some. I think I might get some of those LED lights. I think that would be a really good idea.
You're welcome.
And so I will be using some of my budget for that. Even though I've already submitted it, I will be moving some of those funds around and making sure that I have that on there. So, all right. So I wanted to talk about things that I also love to do this too. There was a guy, I'll even name him because he's a really awesome dude. His name was Mac Ramsey. He's one of the best elders I ever worked with and man, he was loving and caring. And he said he always did these handwritten notes, and basically every quarter I would get a handwritten note from Mac Ramsey. And it just said, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Thank you for all that you do. Whatever else. And that would be the end of it. He was awesome. But he said, you never know how much a handwritten note means to somebody. And I'll just tell you, I have a drawer up in my office that is packed full of cards that I have received over the years about just whatever it is, thank you for this, thank you for that. And sometimes when I'm having a rough time where things are just kind of not going like I'd like for them to, I just take out that all those notes and stuff, and I read over. I've got kids that I worked with 15 years ago who wrote me a note. One of them, I actually talked to him on the phone not long ago. One of them is probably going to listen to this podcast, and he's a youth minister now, and he wrote me a note. I'm talking in 2010. he wrote me a note, and I have it in my drawer, and I take it out and read it. I'm like, man, I remember when this happened. He's a cool kid, you know. And so make sure to take time to write a card to your kids when they do something cool. Had a girl that her dance team, they won state championship, and I wrote her a card and just said, hey, congratulations, you did a great job. I'm proud of you representing Christ in something that you love. And you know, we have all those kind of things. Maybe find some kind of prize. You know, we always have little prizes that go along with things. I like to buy these little trophies. They're so cheap, and the kids love them. I don't know why they love them, but they do. But just get these little trophies and just hand those out. Throw them around. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them on Amazon.
And party department.
I mean, it's a really, really cool thing. And then make sure that the kids are recognized for the things they're doing. And this does include like graduations and football honors, you know, anything like that. Make sure to recognize them and do something special for them, you know. And by special, I don't mean, you know, spend a ton of money, but you know, if they invite you to come to their senior goodbye graduation party or something like that, show up, bring a gift, and consider that when you're making your budget, you know. Cards, anything like that. Yeah.
Do you guys do a senior gift, like when graduation banquet happens? Do you do a gift to each individual senior from you or from the youth ministry budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Mine's from me.
Okay.
But
so I think that's something that you know, if you're in a situation where you can do that financially and you want to do that, I think that's great. If you're not in a situation where you can do that, but you still should do something like that, put it in your budget plan.
Yes.
You know, it might be, you know, look, we're youth ministers. We get it. You probably don't make that much. Okay. Sorry. But it might be that you can't personally afford to do that, but you want to do something to be a blessing to them, to say, I recognize that this is a moment of passage, of transition for you. And so budget, you know, $20-$30 per graduate or something. Get them a gift card or get them some kind of, you know, whatever. Give them a book, whatever it is.
Yeah. I always try to do some kind of book and then a Bible. You know, and I don't get cheap. Whenever people hand out these cheap Bibles, I just get a little bit. You know, I think I want to get them something that they're going to hold on to, that they're going to keep and use, maybe for the rest of their lives. When Jeremy gave me my Bible when I graduated, I still have that Bible and I still use it all the time. It's really nice. It's one of the ones that I have two Bibles that I primarily use. One's ESV, one's NIV. The one that Jeremy got me was NIV. I love it. I use it all the time. I have another one that's ESV that I use it all the time. And so I want to provide a Bible that's going to last like that one, because I have a story to go with that one. You know, I've had that Bible since 2008, right, and I use it basically every day. Mm-hmm. And I want to provide that with somebody. And it's because Jeremy didn't just get some cheap Bible from wherever. He bought a nice Bible. And so if you're not spending $30-$40 on a Bible, you're not spending enough. You know, I usually spend.
I wish I was spending $30-$40.
I know, I'm saying that's bare minimum.
Yeah.
You know, I'm spending probably $60 to $70 per Bible to make sure that they're going to get a good quality Bible to be able to use.
So I'll tell you something that happened literally this week that I think is worth looking at in your budget plan. Talking about giving out things like that, gifts, prizes, whatever. Last year when I was buying the senior Bibles, not the ones that I bought for the seniors, but there was a cheap deal. They were like $14, $15 for a nice, imitation leather bound ESV Bible from Crossway, I think it is, that publishes. Yep. And so really, really
not
nice, really nice, thin line Bibles. And so I bought like 5 of them. We didn't necessarily need those at the time for something else, but I bought them and I just took them on my shelf. So this last Wednesday night, one of our guys in our youth group, he's so good at bringing friends, inviting friends, and he brought 3 friends with him. And they're sitting in the back of the classroom, and I see them, and, you know, we keep saying, you know, turn to this passage, and they don't have a Bible, and they're, you know, but they're engaged and they're listening. And so I realized they don't have a Bible, and I went back there and said, hey guys, do you have a Bible? And they said no. And so I just went in my office and I grabbed 3 Bibles off the shelf and I handed it to these 3 guys. And at the end of class, I said, do y'all own a Bible? And they said, no. I said, well, you can have that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Which again, it cost me $45, right? It was 3 Bibles, but $45, man, your eldership will put that in your budget all day. If you've got 3 kids that you could hand a Bible to, every Bible class, they'd buy it. There's value in being able to do that, and you'd be surprised how many of your visitors, your friends, of your students don't even own that kind of thing, and you could be such a blessing. And I'm hoping we see some benefit and result in long term from me handing these kids Bibles last week.
We had a girl that came and visited. She visited for about a year or so, but after her second visit, I noticed that she didn't have a Bible. The first day that she downloaded the Bible app on her phone, and then she used her phone that day. And then the next time she was like, I want to, and so she told her friend, I don't have a Bible. I want a Bible. Like, I want one that's mine, and I want. And so while we were discussing that, her friend texted me and was like, "Hey, is there any chance that you have an extra Bible?" And I was like, "Yeah. Why? What do you need? Do you need it, or do you need to borrow it, or what?" And she was like, "No, this girl, the girl that I've been bringing that's visiting, she really wants a Bible, and she said she was going to go buy one, but they were too expensive." And I was like, "Dude, you tell her that when she comes to class the next time, I will have a Bible for her, 100%. And so I went and bought a nice Bible, again, $60, $70 Bible. And I actually got two of them. One of them was journaling because she likes to draw and color and do stuff. So I got her a journaling Bible, and then I got her a study Bible. And so I gave both of them to her, and I said, hey, these are yours. You do whatever you need to with them. And she joined the military. She has her Bible in the military, and she's reading it and studying it and
awesome.
journaling. And so, again, you don't know. It's always important to keep that stuff in your budget, because had I not budgeted that,
you'd feel like your hands are tied. I can't spend this right now, and watch for deals like that. I mean, I wasn't planning on buying those Bibles. It just happened to be a cheap, really good deal for a good quality Bible, and I was like, man, I'm buying 4 or 5 of these. And because I knew I had some funds to do that, it gave me the freedom to go ahead and pull that trigger and do that.
Well, and they can be used in so many different ways too. I mean, I've used Bibles in my budget in the past, and it's because we've taken phones away from the classroom, where I don't want them on their phones during class, so they can't be on their phone on their Bible app, but instead they're sitting there writing, using their Bible. If they don't have one, then you just kind of let them use it. Something else I want to are we good with that? Something else I want to transition to that we don't think about often, but we did kind of talk about last episode, is guest speakers. We utilized ourselves in an area-wide retreat because our students didn't hear us all the time. But oftentimes we don't think about that. And we oftentimes don't think about what to pay them, what they're worth, and also we don't consider how far they're driving. What's been really cool the past 2 summers, we've done a youth, young adult summer series on Monday nights. And it's been a lot of fun. Michael came and he spoke this past year. I'm going to have Jeremy this summer. Not because he's sitting right here, but I'm going to have Jeremy this next summer. And but it's really cool because we get local people, but we get some people that might travel a little bit. This past year, it was Michael, Trey Durden at Beltline, Jason Helton at Madison, and Coach Tapp from Heritage. And luckily, all of them were fairly close. I think Jason was the farthest drive. So that we didn't really have to worry as much about the travel costs and things along those lines. But also making sure that you're paying your speakers well, and also that you're thinking about speakers, whether it's for retreats or for that area-wide devotional that you have, or even for us when we do area-wide devotionals. We might want to bring in a guest speaker or a song leader or something like that that's going to benefit us.
Yeah, I almost always get a dedicated song leader and a dedicated speaker at every retreat that I do, and so it really doesn't matter which retreat, what I'm doing. But I always try to get a dedicated person this is what they do. And I make sure that's covered. Make sure I have that in my budget. Make sure everything's covered on that.
Man, my brain just stopped for a second. So for guest speakers, I think we also neglect to think about how actually often we're going to need that kind of thing. It happens more than you realize. And I think having a good plan for what you're going to do and how you're going to pay them is important. I think, what did you say for speakers for retreat you do? How much did you say that?
Yeah. Usually with a retreat, I'll have 4 speaking options, or 4 speaking times.
Right.
So if I have somebody coming in, one of my best friends in the whole world, Nathan Powell, last time we had a retreat, we got him in and I paid him, I think, $150 per lesson. And so we're looking at about $600, and then his mileage.
Sure.
And so that's how I do it. But usually when I just have somebody come in and do like a one-time thing, like we're going to have an area-wide, at some point, this year. I think it's in April, but we're going to have an area wide. And when we do, I'll have a speaker come in. And usually when I've got just one guy coming in doing one thing, I do 200. And then we'll pay for like a hotel room if he's from far away and his mileage and whatever we need to do. And so that's some stuff that you have to consider. And you need to have a plan, because when I got here, I was like, how much do we pay people? I don't know what to do. You know, I don't know how much.
And it's different at every place, but
Right.
there's a pretty close to standard rate that, you know, is happening. And you're not paying this guy for the 30 minutes that he's speaking. You're paying him for the 10 hours of prep that he did to make this lesson and get it ready to communicate.
It only takes you 10 hours to prep a lesson?
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Jeremy's just better.
Yeah, Jeremy just knows what he's
just
doing.
just built different.
Just built different, yeah. Okay, Jeremy, why don't you tell us about like when you are planning out events and how you come up with a number on how much that costs?
Yeah. So first thing I'll say with events is I categorize my events. So on my current budget from 2024,
You need a life. Okay.
yes,
go
on my current budget from 2024, I've got summer activities. I've got non-summer activities, because we know that the reality is summer is like our Super Bowl, and so those things have their own. They have their own category, and non-summer activities, and then I have overnight trips. And so overnight trips is going to be like my Rush or Uplift or Decatur Work Camp, all those kind of things that we do, retreats, Winterfest, all that stuff. And so I have each one of those in its own line item under that category. But what I do is I think about, okay, how much when we go to Winterfest, how much is the cabin going to cost us to rent? How much is the registration ticket going to cost per person? You know, how many people do I estimate that we're going to have go? Around 40, right? How many vehicles we're going to take to drive? What are we going to buy the T-shirt for the event? All those things. I figure out what the expense, the total max expense for this would be if no one paid a dime. Right?
Yeah.
And then I start working backwards from, okay, if people paid $100 towards this, how much would that offset the cost down? And so that once I figure out that, then I take that and subtract that $100 per 40 people out of that event, and then I know this is how much my budget line needs to be for said event.
Yeah.
And I do that for every event, which seems like a lot.
I do that
But
too.
you know what? We're paid to do a job.
Yeah.
This is not something we haphazardly go through.
I think all three of us do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do give or take $200, and I always do more than what that is,
Yeah.
because there's going to be kids that need financial assistance
Yeah.
or whatever for whatever reason. So yeah, I think that's super important.
That's always my goal with any event is to try and make it as cheap as possible for the kids and parents.
Yes.
As long as the elders are on board with that and they're okay with flipping the bill for a lot of things, I want it to be as cheap as possible. That way, there's absolutely zero excuse for them not being there.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I don't necessarily want zero either.
No, they will have to pay something.
You want a little buy-in, not because you want them to spend money, but because you want them to feel an investment.
Yes. There's a thing that I've learned over the years is if they've invested money in it, their parents are going to make them go. And so when they're like, no, I don't think I'm going to go at the last second, their mom's
spent
like,
$40.
no, I paid $40. You're going.
Right.
I don't care. We spent that money. We're going. And so,
for years I kept exposure and CYC at $60. I think the last year I raised it to 80 just with how expensive things are getting. And
Yeah.
I think this year I'm charging 100.
Yep.
Out of everything that we're doing. So it's still not bad. It's getting more expensive, but that's just with the economy and cost of living, everything else in general.
So can I shift us for a second?
yeah.
Okay, so Michael, let me ask you, when you start thinking about your curriculum, education stuff, like what goes into that thought process for you?
I think you get what you pay for when it comes to this curriculum stuff and the resources that you purchase and buy, which we actually have a free resource on our website. So go oksyouthministry.com, download. We have a retreat guide. It's just a booklet that has questions, answers, classes, topics, and all that stuff, all included. You just go on our website. It's free. Get on there, hit the free button, and just download it, and you'll see the kind of stuff that we put out. And it's a really cool resource. Go look it up. Speak Life Retreat.
And our resources are going to grow as we get better at this and we get further along. We're going to have more and more on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so make sure that you are paying for good classroom content, because like I told, we were talking, I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but we were talking and discussing this topic together one day. And I passed out some surveys to our parents and said, what's the most important thing? And the most important thing to 100% of our parents was the classroom. We want our Bible classes to be good. And so this is something that's very important to your parents. It's important for your kids. Find good resources. Find good things that you can spend, and be willing to spend money on them, because they can get a little expensive. I think I bought some curriculum not long ago. It was like $300.
Yeah.
But it's top-notch, high-quality stuff that I can even say, if I'm not going to be there, I'll wake up and I'm sick on a Sunday morning, I can send this to one of my youth deacons, or I can send it to somebody and say, hey, I need you to teach this class. And it's something that they can follow along. They can do it. It's something that's going to be easy enough for them to walk through it on a last-second basis. And so make sure that you're getting stuff. I'm talking about, not just material that you're going to read on, not just classroom stuff, but video series, subscriptions that you're doing. I use Canva to market some of the things, and sometimes I'll use that to market some of my Bible classes to keep them engaged. For my PowerPoint slides, I use that to create my PowerPoint slide. There's books that you need to be reading, that you need to be focusing on to try and get. I know the Fuller Youth Institute puts out this thing called Can I Talk About That? Or it's something like, Can I Ask That? That's what it is. And we walk through that, and it's a great resource to use and a book to use that you should be budgeting for, that you should be planning for, because if you're not, again, you're going to be stuck creating your own material. And I'm not saying that, but having material that's been produced that you can read through, and then you can put your own creative thought and creative license into it, makes the class better. When you're creating something, it takes a ton of time that you don't have, and it takes a ton of thought to go through it, and then trying to make it creative it's a lot of time, effort, and energy that you don't have to be spending. And
Fuller does a great job with that on all of their books that they do. They leave room for creativity.
Yes, 100%.
So we're using right now, we're using the Gospel Project curriculum. This is something that a friend of mine put me on, and I really like it. It's easy to follow through, kind of what you're saying. What's another, maybe a company or a brand that you've looked at before or you've used before?
I've used Youth Ministry 360,
which is based out of Birmingham.
Yeah, YM 360.
Yeah.
It's got some really good quality content, and
soon to be sponsored.
Yeah. Well, hey, I ordered from them, and they sent me a $5 Starbucks gift card.
Yeah.
It was just a cool.
They do some cool follow-up stuff.
They called me. Hey, I want to know how the content's gone. Have you been able to use it yet? What did you think about the videos that prepare you for each lesson? What did you think about? And they do a great job. And so
they budgeted for those gifts.
That's right. That's right. They did. So Hunter, is there something that you had that you?
Oh yeah, my last thing is talking transportation. For years, I have fought and fought. It actually took me 5 years to get a church bus.
Yeah.
And I was so happy.
Yeah.
Michael, I cannot explain to you how happy I was to finally have this church bus. And we were going to the Decatur Church of Christ that night for an area wide. And lo and behold, Jeremy Crow got a new church bus. And it was twice the size of my church bus.
Just a little bit bigger.
Better.
So he backed in, rolled down the window and said, "What's your little bus doing sitting next to my bigger bus?" So ever since then, but no, it's something that you have to remember. And not only that, you have to really plan too. Because when you're looking at transportation and you're looking at how you're getting people places, really the hard part of that is you have to go get the bus. You have, or mainly with a van, you have to go find someone that rents a van, and then you have to go get it and you have to bring it back. So for us, the challenging thing for me before the bus was, well, for CYC, we'd take 2, 3, 4, 5 vans. Well, I have to figure out who's going to go get those vans, who's picking them up, who's taking them to get them, and who's bringing them back.
And who's driving.
And who's driving, and you have to have their license and everything else. And that does get very expensive. And even now with the church bus, I'm still having to deal with that, but not as many vans anymore. So it's not near as bad.
Yeah.
But that is something we have to keep in mind, too, is the cost of vans and transportation in general. And I always, especially CYC, we'll take the church bus, and usually we'll have 2 other vans. And I'll always have one parent that I trust to bring their vehicle to, that if something happens or there's a vehicle there and they can get in and out of places faster than a van can, just for any emergency situation or medical thing.
So let me ask this, and you guys may have a different experience, but for us at Coleman, fuel is not in my youth budget, fuel for the buses,
Nope.
which is so appreciated because it's such a thing that varies. You can't really plan ahead for that. We know that changes daily, but it takes a lot of the question out of that. So they kind of have a separate van budget. Did we vastly under budget on fuel or maintenance and things this year? I think we did. Our big
fuel,
bus uses way more fuel than our old little bus used
Well, I mean,
to.
look at the price of gas and how much it changes over the year. I mean, it's hard to budget that.
Yeah. Jeremy, why don't you tell us about some of the things that you do to like? I'll just preface this. Jeremy did this series called Elephant in the Room. I thought it was incredible. He shared it with me. We talked about it a little bit before he started it. I love the idea. I loved everything about it. I'm sure that it served their church well. But things like that, kind of like leader training or
So
that kind of thing.
So one of the things we talked about, after retreat, we said one of the things we want to do is like post thank you gifts and whatever to leaders, doing things that tell people that we appreciate you or that we're trying to help you. One of the things I've really been pouring myself into in the last 2 years in Coleman is trying to figure out how do we support parents. We've talked about before that we are supplemental to what parents are doing in the home. How do we help parents be able to better do the things that they need to do? And so I am trying to get, training seminars or class series or things that would help parents feel enabled to better care for or minister to the heart of their child. The Elephant in the Room series was essentially us having conversation about hot topics that need to be covered in youth ministry that often are ignored or avoided. Things like depression, things like pornography, there's a lot of stuff we covered. And so we kind of dug into all that. We also did, we had the Analog Faith in Digital Babylon seminar, which was taught by Jason Helton. We've also hosted at Coleman an active digital parenting seminar with Chad Landman one year. We've had a lot of different things. One of the things that we're trying to do is help our parents be better at that, parenting their kid. And so one of the things that we do is Lads to Leaders, leadership training with our students, but also in that is trying to help parents, as they teach their kids how to be leaders in the church. That's a program which we use at Coleman to do that. I know a lot of places do that. Going back to the van stuff that we mentioned just a minute ago, we had this deacon at a previous place I worked that Daryl was the absolute man when it came to keeping up with the vans. He was one of these overly analytical engineers that knew down to like the mile of how many miles were on not just the oil change, but the tire rotation. He knew how many miles since the windshield wipers had been changed.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But one night we hosted a small group and we invited Daryl and his wife to the small group. They didn't know. They thought it was just a combined small group, but it was an appreciation night, and we had a big cake for him, and we like doted over and made a big deal over Daryl and his like ministry and caring for our vans.
Yeah.
Supporting and appreciating your volunteers, your leaders, your deacons, your parents, try and find ways to give support. One of those things is giving out books. There's a book that I've recently gotten that's about helping parents understand how to work alongside their youth minister. That's self-serving. It helps me too, right? It helps parents understand what youth ministry is going to look like as their kid goes through ministry and how they can be a support to the youth ministry program. And help them, to build discipleship in their child. So,
and perhaps to move on to the next subject, perhaps the most important part of our budgeting is contingency funds.
Yeah,
things where you didn't plan this out. This is an emergency. You're driving the bus and it breaks down, and you need some money to be able to do something. Any kind of an emergency fund. I've been putting this into my budget every time. What are some things that you've had that have been emergency type things, Jeremy, in your time of doing youth ministry? Something that just happened and you were just like, well.
One of the things you like when we do mission trips, we get this, right? If I go out of the country, I'm going to plan some sort of budget line to say I'm going to have some cash for negotiating with the local law enforcement, or something's going to go wrong with the van, and we're going to have to stop at a place, and we're going to have to put a water pump on the bus, or something. There's all kinds of that kind of stuff. The hope is you never touch your emergency contingency funds, but it's there if you need it.
Yeah. We went to Houston. We were doing a mission trip in Houston. There is a Sam Houston Highway, and I'll just tell you, speed limit's 90 miles an hour. There is nobody on the road. There is you and maybe 3 other cars. But in order to use that road, I think it's $50. You have to pay $50 a toll road, $50 to drive like 100 miles at 90 miles an hour. Shoot ya. Like, I'm all in on that. Like,
I don't think my bus will go that fast.
I think what he meant to say was 65 to 70 when this is listened back.
The speed limit was 90, and so I'm obeying the traffic law.
I really don't think my bus will go that fast.
But at any rate,
Yours
yours won't. That's right. But we're going down Sam Houston. There is no other cars on the road. I mean, literally, it's a one-way highway. One way. There's no other cars around you. You are above everyone else. It's just a straight shot all the way to Houston. It's totally 100% worth it.
Let me ask the one that needs to rear its ugly head in budget discussion. This is not planning ahead, but this is after the budget's already done. What do you do with your receipts? How does that process look like for you guys?
I don't apologize to my secretary.
I just throw them away.
That's not true.
No,
I
I
try to
have
be
actually
better.
gotten better where there's apps that will help you that you can use.
Expensify is one.
Expensify. There's a bunch of different ones. But I always just take a picture. As soon as I do anything, I take a picture of it and make sure that I have at least something,
Yeah.
And I'm not super good at that, but that's what I typically do. I've started doing that 100%. And the way that I give them to my secretary is, if I remember to, I give them to her. If I don't, she sends me a thing that says, hey, here's the receipts I'm missing. And then I go through all my receipts and bring them to her. And so
I've been trying to set a weekly time that I at least look at it. I don't do it every week. Kim knows that. But
shout out to Kim.
Shout out to Kim. Sorry that you have to hate me. So I try to set a weekly time that I'm going to at least look and see, if I need to print some receipts or send some out to her. So, what about when you don't have a receipt? Like you go and their receipt machine is not printing correctly, and you have to deal with that.
Listen, I have done this, and I'm embarrassed to do it, but it's something that I have to do because I have to get a receipt. I just say, hey, if I gave you a piece of paper, could you just write on it and sign it to say that this money was spent? And every time that I've ever done that, they've been okay. A lot of times, like at ball games, you spend your $5 or whatever, and if you need to get that reimbursed, however you want to do it, you don't get a receipt. And so you just tell them, hey, I need you to could you just write it on a piece of paper or write it on this ticket, and that works. I mean, it does. It works whenever that happens. And I have turned in like the little bitty like red ticket stub. I have turned in one of those with where a lady wrote $5 and then signed it, and I turned it in.
It shows that I'm being accountable for this. I'm taking this serious. I'm trying to do my job well.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is the last thing that I want to talk about before we close out, and it is, when do you know that what you're doing is a ministry and not just fun as far as the budget goes? Okay. Let's say you've got some friends who have youth group age people. Y'all go out to eat. Do you use the church card? Do you budget for that? Or is it more of these are just our friends and we're going to, so what are the things that you kind of take into account when something like that happens?
It really just depends on how much money I have in my own account. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
For anyone listening, that was Jeremy Crow.
I don't want to get
Jeremy Crow. That was Jeremy Crow.
I do not want to get fired. No, I think that I do say, like, there's times where, say there's a new family and I invite them out to go eat lunch after church. Sometimes, depending on the situation, if they got like 6 kids, I ain't gonna do it. But if it's a family with 2 kids, I might offer to pay for the whole ticket and put that on my budget. And it's a very nice, kind way to say, I'm glad you were here today.
Yeah.
Can't do it every week. Not going to do it every week, but one time, might buy their lunch, right?
Yeah.
If I go out with one student to do something, an example would be, I went with one of our students, Coleman. We went golfing a few weeks ago. I took him out golfing, and I paid for his 9 holes of golf. Okay.
Yeah.
Could he have paid for it? Yeah, but it was kind of a cool thing, to say, well, Jeremy took me golfing, right?
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy's budget took me golfing, but I paid for Coleman's golf.
So what's something that you consider whenever...
I'm probably not good at this because there's not a lot of stuff that that I do put on the budget as far as it, like taking. Now we'll do breakfast with the kids or stuff like that, and if 1 or 2 kids show up, I'll use the budget to pay for their meals. But other than that, it's pretty much me paying.
Okay.
So I probably don't do great with that.
Typically, the question that I always ask is, would I be doing this if I wasn't a youth minister? That's the question that I ask. Would I be doing this if I wasn't a youth minister?
Yeah.
And if the question is yeah, then I won't. I don't pay for it. It's personal.
Yeah.
And then if the question is no, I'd rather go home and do something else.
Yeah.
Then
Would I be sitting in a
use a
7th
church
grade
card.
girls basketball game? No,
Exactly.
I would not be.
Or any
Basketball game.
girls basketball games.
Or
I'm just joking.
I'm learning tennis. Would I go to a tennis match on my free will? Probably not.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fantasy football loser punishment to me. It's tough. It's more enjoyable now. That
Speaking of fantasy football, you still undefeated?
No, I lost, and the preacher beat me too. That's the worst part.
That's rough.
Shout out to Dak for not doing well.
Oh, Dak Prescott.
Sponsored by
Letting us all
Dak Prescott.
but yeah, that's something I always consider. You're on Lads Leaders, for example. We have a group. They'll all go out to eat on one of the nights, and I'm like, dude, I am not paying $80 to go out to it's just they're so expensive. All the restaurants and the places you go.
Opryland. Ugh.
And so I'm just like, I'm not going to pay $80 for like a semi decent hamburger,
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do it. So
I'm
I
gonna
do
disagree.
plan on
Stacks
that.
is pretty good.
Oh.
Stacks is
Well,
good.
not only that, but budget your hotel room for Lads Leaders.
Oh yeah.
Don't
absolutely.
pay for you're there for the kids. You're the one running around trying to see as many kids as you can to give their speech or lead song leading.
Yeah.
That's your job. Budget for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything else that y'all wanted to mention before we close out?
Get your budget submitted before this Sunday, I guess, guys.
Yeah, get them in.
Get them in. Hey, the
prayer-
sooner the better, right?
We will be putting some resources on our website of examples of budgets maybe that we've done in the future. So be on the lookout for that, and if it's something that you can use, maybe you can adapt it to your situation. So
yeah.
If you have any questions, contact us and we'll be happy to answer it.
Email us, oksyouthministry@gmail.com. Ask any questions or anything that you need to do. We appreciate you listening. We hope that this has been a fruitful discussion that we've gotten to have.
And we're at M2Y tomorrow. When this episode releases, we will be at M2Y tomorrow.
That's right.
So we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Stop by, please. Stop by, say hi. Get we might have some
We got stickers,
stickers. We have some fun stuff that we want to do with
giveaways,
you.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, so come stop by and talk to us and ask us about how we got started and whatever. But we really, again, we do this because we want to be a resource. We want to help. We want to serve other youth ministers, and we want to encourage other youth ministers to keep it up. You're doing a great job. Keep working, even when things kind of seem a little bit down.
And we know this is a long episode, but this is a hard conversation, and it's something that you have to deal with and you have to work on. And so we hope it helps you.
Right. And I wanted to just kind of close out with this statement. Brandon Presnell, really good friend of mine, he said, I was going through a really tough time in my ministry when I was first starting out. And he just said, just remember, whatever you're doing is not done in vain when it's done for God. And so everything that you're doing, it doesn't matter if people don't appreciate it, who cares? Because God does appreciate it. God does appreciate it. We hope that this podcast, this discussion has blessed your ministry. We hope that this has done some good, and we hope that you are blessed. Thanks for joining us today in the important conversation of youth ministry. Go and follow us on Instagram and check out oksyouthministry.com for more information about our upcoming episodes. We'll be dropping a new episode every Wednesday morning, and we look forward to talking with you again next week. And hey, it's okay to be the OKS Youth Minister around, but let's all strive to be just a little bit better.
Once again, we would like to thank the M2Y Conference for sponsoring this episode. We can't wait to see everyone at Heritage Christian University, November 7th through the 10th. Don't forget to stop by our booth and grab a sticker.